reason why human babies are born so helpless and underdeveloped may seem quite paradoxical at first. It's because of their massive brains. Or rather, if they were any further along in their brain development at the time of their birth, they might be too big to fit through the birth canal at all. If you've ever seen a video of a horse, elephant, or other large mammal giving birth, you might have been surprised to find the newborn foal or calf getting up on its feet and moving around independently within mere minutes of being born. Throughout our evolutionary history, from great apes through bipedal hominin, ancient to modern humans, a confluence of factors has led to a situation in which human babies need to be born fully immature. As the first hominins branched away from the great ape lineage around 7 million years ago, they began walking upright as they explored new and open habitats. This bipedal way of getting around would require an evolutionary reconfiguration of our skeletons, the structural change to the human skeleton that would have the most profound effect on the human ability to birth large-brained babies would be in the anatomy of our pelvises. An inevitable effect of this pelvic readjustment was that the birthing canal in humans would become much smaller than in other great apes. But we did become a big-brained species, so there must have been some evolutionary compromises taking place which allowed these mutually exclusive scenarios to somehow work together.